All right, everybody, welcome to today's episode of We As. I am Gareth, hosting the show today. And just before we jump into this amazing guest episode, I just want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode, listening in. If it's your first show, welcome. If you're returning and you're listening all the time, thank you for being here and tuning back in. We got a great show lined up today. Remember, if you want to support the show, you can find us on Patreon. You can find us on Buy Me a Coffee, and every little donation, through those channels really helps us to keep the microphones on, as we playfully like to say, and just helps us keep getting those conversations out there. So share on your social media stories. Put it out there to your friends and families, and if you get something amazing from the show today, which I know you will, share it with everyone, because it makes a big difference and keeps these conversations going around the world. So on that note, we're going to dive into the show, and I am going to introduce my guest for today. I want to introduce, I can't speak apparently today, good asset for a podcaster. I want to introduce my guest today is Kathy Gruver. Kathy, how are you today?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm very good. Welcome to the show. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to... I shared this with you off air that I'm selfishly excited to learn a little bit about all the things that you do. And I know the listeners are going to, they're going to be the fly on the wall in this conversation. They're going to learn a lot too. So a little bit of an introduction, and I want to just share, a little bit of your kind of backstory. And you're going to do a way better job than me, and I'm going to leave it to you. But just to give the listeners a little bit of an overview. Kathy, you're an award-winning author, professional speaker, coach with 30 plus years experience. And, you've just been through so many different avenues, so many mediums of communication, TED Talks, writing multiple books and awards, hosting TV shows, hosting a podcast as well, like myself, and, all over TV and, in print media, and just out there spreading your message, dialing into stress, mindfulness, communication. And one thing that I loved was putting your best self forward, and we're all about that. The show, we talk about being the best possible version of yourself, and I know we're going to align on many things today. So I'd love to just hand it over to you, and I want to start with a question. So, and I'm going to go right in, because this is how I like to do it. So I'm going to hand the microphone to you to talk as much as you want about the next question. On listening to your TED Talk, you speak about how the first time you left the United States was when you were 38 years old. And what I want to know is, what did that change for you in your life? Very macro level.
Yeah, so much. Okay, so first of all, just being out of the country. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I was not one of those kids that had the privilege of, you've graduated, here's 6 months in Europe. I kind of envy those college students now that get to backpack around Europe, and they do, abroad programs. That wasn't something that was an option for me. So when I finally had the opportunity to leave the country, it was so huge, because I love myth, I love legend, I love just learning about different cultures. I'm a total adrenaline junkie and an adventure junkie. Go for it, as I talk about in the TEDx talk, is my motto. So to get to leave the country was amazing, and I did it by myself. My husband at the time was not able to go with me, so I jetted off by myself. Do you want me to tell the whole story? Is that what you're hinting at? My stranded on the side of the road story?
Yeah, I'd love to. We could also just leave that as a little, hey, you should head over to the TED Talk and hear the story. But I think my kind of direction for the question, and it's the one thing I wrote in bold letters on my notes, was because for me it's been a very impactful journey of moving around, living in different countries, and I know it impacts so many people. Yeah. And just, I guess that was my thing, is how did it change your, more so than the story, how did it change the way you viewed the world, being in a different culture for the first time? And I understand there's different cultures within the United States, but outside of the borders of the country, how did it change the way you approach life?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great question. And so many people who, you have an accent that I'm assuming is not from the United States. I'm just a United States girl, but there's so many people in this country that have not ventured out. They've not ventured out of their own county, let alone of their country. And to go to different places. Now, my first stop was England. Wasn't horribly different than the States, except they talked a little bit funny, which, because I was an actor, was an accent that by the time I left, I was doing along with them. They asked me where I was from in England, and I'm like, California. They didn't get that. Pittsburgh. They definitely didn't get that. But what I realized as I went to countries that didn't have the same culture as me, I was in Egypt, I was in Jordan, I was in South Africa. There were these preconceived ideas of what those cultures are like. And that is fueled by our media, that is fueled by ignorance, that is fueled by fear. And literally, as I was flying into Jordan, I was looking out of the plane expecting to see bombs going off in the distance because people were so terrified for me of, you can't go there and you're going to get kidnapped and you're going to get beheaded. And I'm like, okay, one, what a great story for my next life if I'm doing a past life to talk about. And two, I can't live in fear. Like, I can't wake up every day and worry that something's going to happen. So for me, I think it was specifically heading to the Middle East where I got to experience a culture that was all about family. You know, they woke up and they went to work every day, just like we did. Their humor. And I actually started to feel bad as like, because I believe I'm sort of an ambassador from the United States when I travel. It's like, I represent our country, I represent our culture. And I missed every bloody joke because I was so worried about, well, I'm not supposed to laugh and I should put my left hand up. No, it's my right hand. And, you know, I was so fearful of trying to fit in with this culture that I missed out on the humanity of it. So I think that for me was the biggest lesson, is to just look around and see, you know, no matter what the governments are doing or the people in charge, these are just other human beings raising their kids, loving each other, trying to make a living, paying their bills, laughing, enjoying their coffee in the afternoon or their tea. And so for me, it was so great to get out of the very westernized culture and see people who had different ideals, but the same basic life. To me, that was just such a phenomenal experience. And I love the different foods, the different religions, the different, you know, spiritual beliefs. I love exploring all that. But to realize they're just other people was such an enlightening thing for me.
I could honestly take that point and end the show, and I think everyone would get a good takeaway. We're not going to do that, but it's so true. It's just the same people. I love everything you said, and it will resonate with so many people. And if it doesn't, I think it's a good learning opportunity to understand that we are, you know, there is that the equality in the way we go about life, with, you know, little changes, little differences, right, in different places all over the world. And I learned that a lot, and I probably didn't travel really very much until I was in my mid-20s, and then I kind of went all over the world. And it's the same thing. It opened me up to, and I grew up in England, so this is a really odd accent, but Canada, New Zealand, England, all over. So now I hear myself on podcasts and I'm like, I don't even know where I'm from. It's like a, I don't know, Commonwealth accent, I guess. It's very random, but it taught me so much. And I grew up I grew up in South London and just outside of there. And one of the big things was I saw diversity growing up in the 80s, but I didn't see acceptance of the diversity. That really affected me. And I love what you're saying, because when I went out there around the world, I was able to take the diversity that I'd seen. So it wasn't a shock to me to go out and see different cultures and different religions and people, you know, people of color, and all those things weren't a big thing to me, but accepting their culture and creating that acceptance around it was huge. And it sounds like that was a very similar experience for you.
Yeah, you know, we're in this environment of us versus them, and actually my second TEDx was about us versus them. And as I realized as I went around the world that that's a manufactured thing. And like, if I say right now, okay, everybody divide up, blue eyes on the left, brown eyes on the right, you're fighting each other. You are going to play dodgeball. You're the enemies, and you start that game. And then I go, oh, no, wait, actually, we're going to do boys over here, girls over there. Suddenly, a second ago, people that were them are now us. And it's like, just, you know, like, which category are you putting people in? We're just people. And this us versus them thing is so manufactured, and it's so fake, and it's propagated because it sells newspapers and it sells advertising on newscasts, and it keeps people in fear, which keeps them easily malleable. And so that was definitely the one thing that I found, especially going to the Middle East with so many of my clients terrified that I was never going to come home. And it was just such a demented, in the purest sense of that word, demented view of the world. And so to me, anytime I get to travel anywhere, it's an adventure, it's a learning experience, or at least I hope it is. It's a chance for me to grow and evolve, and then come back to this country and go, no, you guys had it wrong. They're just trying to feed their kids.
Yeah, it's so true. And you can't see that from the other side of the world, because you don't get the, you know, and we could go on a whole other debate about what our news channels and our media channels put out there, but it's not always communicated in the most authentic way, let's say. And having been in there, I can see that, and I understand that. And I even find that even just in Canada, like big country that I am now very fortunate to live in, that even traveling coast to coast in Canada, I've been very fortunate to do that for work. That made a big difference too, because you can see, you learn so much more about it. And I'm so pleased I've been able to do that over the last few years. And you get that real diversity, even within a small window. So like I'll say to everybody listening, travel, even if you just travel in your own country.
Absolutely.
And see what's out there, right? Because we don't all have that option. Hopefully you will, and hopefully the world will be, I don't know, I hesitate to use the word normal, but it'll have a new standard, and we'll be able to travel a little bit. And I need to go home to England and pay a little visit soon. So that'll be a lot of fun. I did get a kick actually on that note out of listening to your story, and I won't ruin it too much for the listeners, but hearing about Stonehenge and all the things. I actually lived very close to that for a while, for a couple of years. So I'm very, very familiar with driving down that. The A303 was a constant. My wife's parents were that side, so in Dorset. So we used to drive past that every time we went to visit. So I'm very familiar with Stonehenge and all the things around it. So I got a kick out of that. I love what you just said about the kind of them versus us conversation, and it makes me think. And I think there's some parallels here, but hear me out, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So we talk. We've kind of coined the phrase a we as conversation. Obviously, the show is called We As, and it has a genesis in other formats, so we as men, we as women, we as dads, and many other formats, and we've kind of evolved, and that's life evolving. And we speak about the we as conversation, and it's the very inclusive, it's the very open, it's the very non-judgmental, and we kind of compared this, over probably too much wine one evening with myself and the other hosts, that there's also the they as conversation. And it sounds like the they as conversations are those ones where we're maybe in our groups, let's call it, or whatever it is. It's, cultural groups, it's religious groups, it's whatever it is, whatever you choose to be involved in. And, your beliefs are beliefs, and I respect that. But sometimes they can kind of pigeonhole us into that. And I feel like we're aligned on that. And they as the conversations we have, as opposed to, hey, you know what? There's other things out there. And, and this podcast taught me a lot about the we as conversation. And I'd love to hear your kind of thoughts on how those things align.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. We're pigeonholed into these categories. And it's funny because I just traveled to Texas, which is like a whole different country from where I am. And I was doing a speaking engagement. I was so happy to be back in person, and I'm like in a dress and heels, and not in my living room in yoga pants and slippers with a nice top on. And I got out of the taxi to go back to the airport, and I had sold every book that I brought, which is very exciting as a speaker and an author. So my suitcase was like nothing. And the taxi cab driver goes like, heave the suitcase, and it like flows up in the air. And he goes, "Oh, you packed pretty light for a girl." I was just like, yes, I packed pretty light.
Yeah.
Period. What about you? Like, nothing about me, but he immediately put me in that, you packed pretty light for a girl. And I wasn't offended by it. I kind of chuckled and thought, that's hilarious that's his perception of what a girl would pack, so I see that all the time. And when I love having conversations with people that believe differently. I love having conversations with people of a different political ilk, of a different religious belief, because here's what I want to know. What happened? What makes you think that? Like, I just get curious about it. I want to know the why, the how, like, how did you come to that decision? How did you form that belief? Like, what happened in your life that allows you to believe that way? And I have one client, I haven't seen him in ages. He unfortunately moved away, but he had a very polar opposite political belief than I did. But we had the best conversations, because at the end of those conversations, inevitably, one of us or both of us would go, wow, you know what? I actually never considered that. I never thought about that point of view. I don't agree with you, but I never thought about that. So both of us would walk away, I think, a little bit deeper, a little bit more open, a little bit more understanding of a different perspective. And that's where I think conversations fall apart. The we and the they, it falls because you get judgy, and you get accusatory, and you get nasty, and you get angry. And it's like, it's a thought form. It's not us. What we think is not who we are. It's just this thing that happens around us. So we get so defensive of our beliefs and of our football team and our position. And it's such a waste of, I'm a Steeler fan, so I can say that, but it's such a waste of energy to be so attached to this identity that isn't actually who we are. So I love those conversations of being curious, just being purely curious about the other person's point of view, and then letting them actually talk. Don't ask the question and then interrupt and tell them they're wrong. Just like, listen for a second. Silence is great.
Into the beauty of good quality podcasting. I'm putting myself in that category, where we do that. We have curious conversations, and it actually just makes me think about a conversation, two things from a conversation I had recently on a show. And one, that there was we went deep into a conversation on a show, and I'm not going to ruin it for the listeners, but it'll be out soon, or it's out already, depending on when this airs. But we had a conversation, and it got quite spiritual, and then it got a little bit religious after that. And it was interesting for me because 3 or 4 years ago in my life, I don't think I would have had that ability to be non-judgmental in that conversation. And it went down. I would refer to myself as agnostic. And we kind of discussed that, and we discussed spirit, and then there was some references, biblical references and some other religious references. And it was interesting that I could see alignment in the point I was trying to make through another medium. And it made me realize that regardless of what it is you believe, or what belief system, whether that's religious or otherwise, we're all probably trying to teach similar things through a different medium. And the judgment. And funny enough, that conversation went on to what we don't control. Can we really control anything in life? And an amazing, and the guy's name is Brendan Fox, and he made an amazing point where he believes the only thing we can truly control is judgment, which I thought was very interesting. And it gave me a couple of sleepless nights thinking about it, actually. So
good. I'll think about that one tonight in between my to-do list. I'll cover that one. Yeah, that's such an interesting point. I kind of agree, but I think the one thing we can control is our thoughts, and our thoughts are judgment. So yeah, it's sort of the same thing. Yeah. Interesting. Cool.
Yeah, you can be, just like you said, be open and curious, right? Like it's such a wide spanning world we live in. And I talk a lot on the show about widening the lens that we see the world. And I think when he was saying it, I was like, oh, it was a bit rooted in those things that maybe were a bit, I don't know what the word is, woo-woo for me, but I'm opening up to those things. And I realized that what he was saying was simply the same way as me saying, I'm just widening the lens.
Right.
That's it, right? So I think that's huge, and a big takeaway for a lot of people. Now, I'd love to now dig a little deeper, because I can't let that go. When you say you control your thoughts, and obviously that's linked to judgments, I'd love to hear kind of your snapshot on what controlling your thoughts means to you.
Yeah, so we are not our thoughts. If that was the case, as soon as we stop thinking, we die, and that doesn't happen. Because I have had thoughtless moments, and it's bliss. It's beautiful. I do a lot of work with Eckhart Tolle. I've taken multiple courses with him. I studied with him in person. And he talks about silencing those thoughts and having those moments of just silence, those moments of nothing where you're truly just being. And it is such a vacation, and at first it's hard. Every 3 to 5 seconds, our brain has really important shit to tell us. And if it doesn't, then it'll just make stuff up. So it's hard to shut that off. And we do have control over that. Something triggers us. Typically it's a thought or an external thing. We have an emotion that then leads to a thought that leads to an action. We can stop emotion, hard to stop. We have that trigger. We have that, oh, I feel bad. We then get to choose what we do with that. We can always choose to change our mind. And I've had so many either coaching clients or friends or just, people in my life who go, well, I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. You can change your thinking, because when you're in a situation you don't like, you have 3 options. Leave the situation. Can't always do that. Change the situation. A little harder to do. Change yourself. It's the not easiest one. I mean, it is the easiest one of those 3, because we unfortunately can't control anyone else. Wouldn't that be nice? So it's like we can change our thinking at any given point. There's an event that happens. I can choose how I think about that. I'll give you an example. I was doing a conference in Vegas. It's a naturopath conference. We had a little cocktail hour. It was great. It was 10 o'clock. I had to speak the next morning. I was exhausted. Vegas, it's draining. I wanted to go up to my room. So I head to the elevator. The elevator opens. I jump into the elevator, and I forgot that we were sharing a hotel with a roller derby conference. Don't jump ahead. So I get in the elevator, and they decided it would be funny to see how many roller derby girls they could fit in the elevator, not realizing I had already gotten in, and I was clearly not a roller derby girl. So they shove people. The doors, there's like 30 people in this elevator, and I'm shoved in the back going, no, I gotta go. And the doors close, and you hear, dunk, and the elevator drops about a foot, which was terrifying. And it stops. We're stuck in the freaking elevator. So I am not happy about this, right? I'm exhausted. I put on my cranky pants because they're so comfy, right? Now, I had a choice in that moment. I could either be a raging bitch, which is the choice that I made, Or I could have been like, dude, this is hilarious. This is going to be such a great story later. I'm probably going to share this on multiple radio shows in my future. Oh, you're passing around Jack. Hell yeah, I'll take some of that. But instead, somewhere, I'm sure there's a video of this bitchy white woman in the back going, I keep like, stupid. I clearly made the choice to just be a jerk about it. Now, I couldn't change the situation. I couldn't get out of there. I couldn't choose to not have gotten in the, I couldn't turn back time. I chose not the healthiest choice. And when the firefighters finally came and opened the door, I burst to the front because I had to get out first because I was so important. It was hilarious. And now I can look back at that and go, I made a very conscious choice to not just enjoy the 15 minutes doing jack shots in the elevator with the roller derby girls.
It makes me think that, well, I don't even think I know that there's people listening right now that are thinking about the last year of their life with COVID and all the other shit that we've been going through, and as a result of it, and thinking exactly that I can't change, this is what it is. And you know, maybe it's a bit more macro than the elevator. However, a hilarious story is, it's so true. We can't stop this. And we have to accept it is what it is, and we have to, and I would say I've been able to find some moments of calm and some moments of gratitude, but it's been difficult, and I'm sure it has for a lot of people. But if we look back, we could have approached many situations the last year very differently.
Yeah. It's about changing our thinking. It's cognitive restructuring. It's, what do I know to be true? What do I have control over? Let's make those changes. I mean, it sounds so ridiculously simple. And I know when we're in it, when we're in that fight or flight, is it even worthy of fight or flight? What choices are we making? And it's sort of human nature. But I remember being in that elevator and literally thinking, dude, like, what are you at? Okay, she's gone. She's Capricorn took over. She's acting like that. I guess we're stuck with that now, rather than just enjoying myself and taking advantage of this very hilarious moment.
Yeah. That when you said that, how you kind of almost aware of the, like the Capricorn taking over. I'm listening to a book right now, a really great book, and it's very, it gives me some sleepless moments, but it's called The Untethered Soul.
Oh,
okay. So I don't know if you know that. It's very, it's a bit out there for me, but I'm really enjoying it, actually. When I first decided it was about my comfort zone as a book, so I took it on, and he talks about that kind of like true freedom being is you're not the voice inside your head, which kind of aligns, I think, with the thinking is you're there and you're aware of the person that's thinking, and that mind, the voice in your head. And it sounds like there's some parallels in that.
Yeah. Well, and even Eckhart Tolle talks about that. He says, it's not the circumstance that makes you unhappy. It's not the circumstance that causes stress. It's our narrative about it. It's the story we're telling us about that thing that's happening. It's not the thing itself. And if you really distill it, it's like, that's actually true. It's not the traffic that's causing the problem. It's our story of, oh, I got to get there and I can't believe this. And why'd that guy do that? And, it's all of that that's going on. This that happens all the time, 60,000 thoughts a day. I don't know who had to count that. That's exhausting. That it's like, our mind has to have an identity, and it does that through thinking.
Yeah, I really, I love that. And I think it's kind of going there. I've got a few hours left to listen on the book, but it's going to change the way I do a few things for sure. So I really like that. Now there's a big hot topic out there right now. And I'm going to put kind of meditation and mindfulness in this bracket, although they are quite potentially very different things, but very similar as well. Mindfulness. This is a word that everyone has heard. It's on every other social media page. It's in every book. And I know that it is something that you're passionate about. And I'd love to get just another insight, your thoughts, your overview of mindfulness, and maybe just some top tips, because I think we could all do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite things. That's one of the 5 techniques I teach when I do my stress reduction talk. So mindfulness is simply going about an activity with focus, curiosity, non-judgment, and bringing in all of your senses. So the point of it is to be non-judgmental. So whether you're meditating or doing a mindfulness practice or a visualization, the point is, it would be great if we could shut out our thoughts. We know how hard that is. The point of it is to notice the thoughts and not attach to them. I like to use the analogy of like the luggage return at the airport. You don't grab every bag. you just let them go. So if you can let your thoughts go, like, oh, there goes one. Oh, I was thinking about the dinner. Oh, I smell garlic. Oh, my leg itches. Oh, the baby's crying next door. You don't have to attach to any of those. So that's kind of the point of mindfulness. And if while you're meditating or doing a mindfulness practice, you get to the point where you can be non-judgmental and just go, oh, okay, I'm thinking right now, then that translates off the pillow into real life. I don't care if you can completely blank out your mind for 2 hours on the pillow. If you're then a jerk to the guy at Starbucks, it's not working. It's not working. So that's basically what it is. And there's two ways that I like to teach it. One of which is pick one sense and just focus on that for a second. So maybe you close your eyes and you just listen to the sound furthest away that you can hear. I hear a flute next door. That's hilarious. Okay. Then maybe you bring it in as what's the closest sound that I hear? I can kind of hear myself breathing in the headset and I still hear the flute. We'll have to deal with that later. But now see, it was my story around that. It had nothing to do with the flute. It was the story I was telling myself of, oh my God, why are they playing a flute? Right. Okay. So perfect example of how thoughts get in the way. What sound is that? Not judging it, not trying to attach to it, not trying to identify, just what do you hear? What do you smell? What do you see right in front of you? And then shut out the other thoughts. Oh, I'm thinking, okay, oh, they're playing the flute. Okay, great. Let that go by. The other way to do it is to take an activity that you're going to do anyway. And I love to use the example of doing the dishes. Decide that you're just going to do the dishes. You're not going to listen to a podcast. You're not going to daydream. You're not going to put a book on. You're not going to play music. Just put your whole being into doing the dishes. What does the water feel like on your hands? Can you feel the soap? What's the temperature? You take a deep inhale and you smell that lemon or that orange, and you can hear the water cascading into the sink and the bubbles kind of crackling. And you open your eyes and you see the bubbles forming in the sink. And inevitably, this happens every time. I put the bottle of soap down and one little bubble goes, bloop, it pops off the top and it kind of floats up. And there's a little rainbow in it. And you watch it for a while and it goes, poof, and there's this little pop of water. And suddenly you realize you have a sink full of clean dishes. And you basically just meditated. And people are, well, you just did the dishes. Yeah, but if you can do that to the exclusion of everything else, just truly do the dishes, then you can also be present at work. You can be present with your kids. You can be more present when you're meditating. And that presence enhances our relationships, our communication, our leadership. It ups everything. So simple exercises like that we can bring into our everyday life train us off the pillow to handle ourselves, to be non-reactive when you're in the elevator with the roller derby girls. That was all thought and that was reactivity. And that was something that I could have changed had I been more present and been less reactive.
I think I don't know. I could just be making this up. It always sounds like I tell people this about how I do some of my meditation, and I always feel like people are going to laugh at me, but it sounds like it aligned. And that's probably because I got issues with what people think, but that's a whole other, we don't get into that. But when you said about the thoughts like cars going past, I picked up a meditation technique a few years ago and this is probably a terrible idea if you've ever been in like a bad accident or something in your car. So don't listen if that's you. But I closed my eyes and this technique I got was, imagine you're sitting on a chair by the side of the highway and there's cars going past, it's a highway, they're doing 100 kilometers an hour and you're watching all these cars go by and you're on the chair and you're still. And every time you drift into a thought, it's like you got in a car. Mm-hmm. And then you just have to remember that you got in the car and get back out. And it works for me. It helps me, and I know it's not meditation, I guess in theory, is not necessarily about stopping thinking. It's about being aware that you do think, right? And then, like I said, getting back out of the car. And I use another one. The other one I kind of personally developed was to go to one of my favorite places, which is by the water, and do the same thing with the waves. Just be aware of the waves going in. And the way my brain works, every time I get drifted into a thought, it's like I fell in the water and now I'm soaking wet and I need to get back out and sit back on the side of the water and watch it again. And that just allows me where I always struggle with meditation was because I always thought like I had to have this clear mind. Whereas now I'm just like, oh, okay, I fell in the water again. I need to get out. And that kind of takes me through that process. And I love that aligned. It makes me feel like I'm doing it right now that you said it. So I'm going to give myself a tick.
There is no right, but I'll give you a star. This reminded me of two things. One of which is I had the privilege of studying with Thich Nhat Hanh, who is probably the second most well-known monk next to the Dalai Lama. And he said that there were days he had trouble meditating because he couldn't turn off his brain. I'm like, dude, you have one job, like to meditate so the rest of us don't have to. How can you have trouble doing this? That was very encouraging to me because I'm like, this is seriously your life. Like, this is what you were born to do. And there were days he had trouble turning off his brain. So I can at least be as gentle with myself. The other thing it reminded me of is I had also the privilege of studying with Dan Brown, the professor, not the author. And he equated it to a dragon. And the head of the dragon is that thought just starting. Then there's the body, which is the story. And there's this beautiful image here, this tapestry from China of this beautiful dragon and all these different parts along it. And the tail is the end of that, where you suddenly open your eyes after 15 minutes and go, oh, that was fun. And you realize that you had this entire daydream about buying a BMW and driving up the coast. And it's like, that was not a meditation. So it equates it to that, if you catch it right at the head and you go, oh, there's a thought, I got it. And before it becomes this whole full-blown story, that's part of the keys to meditation. And if you get to the point where you can truly blank out your mind, and I've had those moments at silent retreats where we sit for like 2 hours in a meditation, and I have a good chunk of time where I don't have any thoughts. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It doesn't happen all the time, and it certainly doesn't happen easily. I'm happy if I get 2 or 3 golden seconds of just silence in my own head. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So I am and this is definitely the wrong way to approach it. However, I am who I am. Try not to judge myself. I have had one experience in probably 2 to 3 years of having some sort of mindfulness and meditation. So to give everyone a little tip where you think to yourself, oh, well, if I do it well for the next 2 weeks, I'll be able to meditate and I'll be able to get all these feelings. Shocker, it's not going to happen. I think once I've had a moment of pure bliss where I guess the sensation for me was like I was floating once.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say I do it. I wouldn't say it's the best habit. Like it's every day, but it's something I constantly do. On regular intervals during my week, year, month, whatever. Once, and now it's like I'm searching for it, which is totally the wrong way to approach it. But I know that there's something there that I can find that if I apply myself to it and continue, eventually it's going to come again, and it will be a different experience for everybody. But
yeah. And everybody meditates differently. I teach a mini meditation, which is simply thinking, inhale, I am, exhale, at peace. And you just repeat that over and over again. And I do that several times a day in between clients, when I'm sitting in traffic, don't close your eyes. Before we get on the air, it's something that it centers you. It stops the fight or flight response. It just ups your game and makes things easier, smoother, more conscious. Now, formal seated meditators go, that's not meditation. Oh, okay. It works. And there's other times where I plop down and I do formal seated meditation, or maybe I'll do a guided meditation, or maybe I'll do a walking meditation. There's so many different ways to do it. I don't care what it looks like. Just do something. If it's 5 minutes of breathing while you pet your cat, why can't that be a meditation? Just really pet the cat. Don't think about other things. Don't daydream. Don't wonder why you named it Puddles. Just pet the cat. Just be with that creature. That's great. That's great if you can find the time to do that.
Yeah, and I think as well for me, mindfulness is listening to everything you've been saying, and the just being in something like washing the dishes, and just being in washing the dishes is think about and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this after. Is find things where you can be just in it. Whatever that looks like. And I know it's not always possible. We can't all do everything we love every hour of the day we're awake. We don't all have that luxury. I'm very fortunate that I do get to do that a lot of the time. I spend 2 days a week with my 4-year-old when she's not in daycare, so I'm very fortunate to have that, and that's been as a result of COVID. So another thing I'm grateful for. And we were out today. Literally, we went out, we sat and we drank coffee and hot chocolate in the sun, and I did nothing but sit and be with her in that. And then we went to the park and we were running on the running track. And now I was thinking about this as you were talking, and I wasn't thinking about anything else. So it was kind of like my meditation. And as you said, there's not a perfect way to meditate. There's not a perfect way to be mindful. It's just trying to put yourselves in those environments and allow space and allow yourself those times in your day to do those things.
Yep. Yeah. And what a beautiful gift to your daughter to just be present with her. especially with, I'm not a parent, but I have so many friends who are parents, and it's crazy. They want something all the time, and you've got other stuff to do. And this is why, so I'm not a parent. Mom, I couldn't do it. I know that it's not my path. And how do you stay present with mommy all that time? How do you stay present with your partner? It's so easy to finish the end of their sentence in your head, or you think you know what they're going to say, so you go, yeah. And then you realize you actually have no clue what they were going to say. Oh, I wish they'd stop talking. I have a joke that went with that thing they said 3 sentences ago. And, or, oh, I forgot I got to clean the sink. And,
So
oh,
many
it's
of those.
talking, right? That's not present. That's not good communication. And everyone says, that listening is the key to communication. Well, that's great, but you can't hear if you're not here. You can't hear them if you're daydreaming about something else. When was the last time you truly were present with your partner or your kid or your coworker? If someone's got a conflict at work and you're like, oh, she's complaining again, then that does disservice to the relationship, to the leadership, to the communication. And so that's why, when I teach people the mindfulness stuff, you can see maybe a third of the room kind of going, I have to do the dishes mindfully. Oh, that's stupid. And then I get to the slide that tells you how this affects the rest of your life. And they go, oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, the ability to do that. And and as you said, everyone has their own path, but for me, it's definitely been, my path was to become a parent. And interestingly enough, I'd never thought it was my path, so that's a whole other story. But it has taught me how to, because when you have something on your path that's your, I hesitate to say your world, but you're one of the most important things in your world, and and a legacy, and continuing you on beyond you, that truly teaches you lessons. So finding those things, whether it's a child or not, whatever it is finding those things in life, because it changes your perspective and the way you live your life. And you can, like you said, you can change your thoughts and the way what's imprinted on you. And it brings me full circle back to something you said with the taxi driver earlier. I'm not sure if you used the word taxi or not, but
I think I did. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cab, whatever you call it. I always call it a taxi. People laugh at me in Canada, but it's so when you told that story about the luggage and the kind of, it's that's packing light for a woman, it makes me think about how we sometimes aren't able to be present with our kids. And sometimes it's because, from a man's point of view, it's because of what's imprinted on us and what we think and the judgments around being a dad. And why I go full circle around to your point about the taxi driver is one thing that absolutely drives me crazy in the world, and judgment, and something that I really struggle to change my judgment on is other people say to me, oh, isn't it nice that you're babysitting? Or say to my wife, well, where's your child? And I had to bring it up. I bring it up all the time. The listeners are going to be like, oh, fuck, he's talking about that again. But it's something where we don't allow ourselves sometimes, because if we listen to that kind of talk and we hear that and we take it personally and we take it on board, and then that helps us, it's generational. It's what's been instilled in people. So I have to release my judgment and not tear people's heads off when they say it, which I've got better at. But then we have to also understand that I have to remind myself that isn't who I am, and I choose not to be that person. Even if other people think I'm the babysitter, that's not who I am, and we're in control of that, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Well, and there's there's so many misconceptions about everything. When I used to tell people that I was a massage therapist and that I did meditation work and visualization, there was all these, they thought I didn't drink. Wrong. They thought I was a vegetarian. Very wrong. They thought I didn't swear. I'm like, have you seen me fucking watch football? They figured I listened to the La 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 music all the time, and that I was constantly meditating. And I'm like, no, I do hip hop. I swear, I watch football. I drive like a maniac. But there was this misconception. Oh, Kathy's a healer. Oh, namaste. And it's like, no, namaste, stop it. Like, that's not who I am. That's not what I do. Yes, I can teach meditation and mindfulness, but that doesn't put me in this box of this not human person who eats meat and drinks wine and swears at football and sometimes gets angry in elevators. We're still human beings, and we're very complex human beings. And that, what you just said, kind of goes back to my perception of being in a different country of, oh, this is how they are, and I have to act a certain way. And, it's the men are from Mars, women are from Venus myth, that all women act a certain way and all men act a certain way. And it's this, this blending of roles that we have now. We're just humans. We're just humans having this experience on this planet. And let's just embrace that and get curious, ask questions, and see who you're actually in front of before you start to make assumptions.
Yeah, give people a break.
Yeah, that too.
And maybe that could be a direct link to giving ourselves a bit of a break on things too, right? The harder we judge others, the harder we judge ourselves. And trust me, I speak from the utmost experience, 20 plus years in the fitness industry.
Mm-hmm.
People have very, like you already said, your story aligns with mine a lot there. People always want to know what's in your grocery cart. They always want to know what you do at the weekend. Well, what do you do for fun? I'm like, yeah, same shit you do. Like, yeah, I might be working out as well, but I'm doing the
Mm-hmm.
same things, right? Yes, I'm eating candy. Yes, I'm
Yep.
drinking. Yes, I'm doing all those things. And some people don't, and that's their choice. But it's humans, right? And it's
Yeah.
releasing, and that's something that truly bothered me. Like, there was a very inauthentic version of me as a fitness professional for many years, because I felt like I had to uphold
Yeah.
this stature, which now I don't give a shit and do what I want. I don't care
Right.
who knows.
Good for you. Well, and to that point too, I mean, we all have different saboteurs. Maybe you're a pleaser, maybe you're a procrastinator, maybe you're a doer, maybe you're a controller, but we all have a judge. And that judge judges ourselves, judges others, and judges situations. And that is one of the hardest things to get over, because that judge of ourselves comes from not only ourselves, but from everything we're told. And I work with so many coaching clients who have this inner mother that's still saying, and they're 30, 40, 60 years old, they still don't think they're good enough. They still think they can't take a 10-minute relaxation because you got to get the work done first. We have all these judgments on ourselves of what we should be doing. We're shitting all over ourselves. What we should be, what we have to be doing. And it's like, it's so hard to quiet those voices. And you can, I got such shit for years because I said I didn't want kids. People I didn't even know were like, "Oh, you'll change your mind." It's like, why do I have to reproduce because I have a vagina? That is not written anywhere that I have to have a kid. I don't want one, And then people thought it was my husband's. Well, what if you leave him and you want one? I'm like, I don't want one. This is not being forced on me by a guy, by my parents, by anybody. I don't want a child. And there was several exchanges I had. I wanted to get a brochure and just hand it out as to why I didn't want kids, because I was so tired of telling the story. The first one was, 1, none of your damn business. 2, here's the reasons. But it's like, I started to wonder, what is wrong with me that I don't want a kid? Is there something wrong with, am I broken somehow? Am I defective because I don't fit into this box of what everybody thinks I should fit in? I got over it pretty fast. But it was that, oh, wait a minute, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah, that is so true. And can we all, I'm hoping that, the evolved listeners of the show will be on board with this. But if we're not already, can we stop fucking asking women when they're having babies? Like, keep your shit to yourself, because I'm very fortunate that, myself and my wife have not had any fertility issues, have not had anything controlling that, not made any decisions not to. And we typically, we're married to, we're in a relationship that's stereotypical in society, and we've had kids and everything else, so I'm not exposed to that. But I have many friends who are, whether it's cultural, whether it's their decision, whether it's infertility, and like we said, give people a break and just let them do what they want to do, within the, I have some limits on that, but stay within the law. But it makes me think, I recorded a show recently and we had a fun conversation about starting a radio show, podcast show called 10% Facts. And the point behind that was that the world is like, we got like 10% of, like, we called it facts, but 10% of, like, moral stuff, the law, in that world, and how things should be, and can be. And, and I'm talking like, the law and, morals and being a good human. And the other 90% is just, it's everything, right? The world of, naturopathic medicine, the world of fitness, the world of meditation, whatever it is. There's some stuff in there that's the same. And I use fitness as an example because it's my field. But, it's carbs, proteins, fats. And it always has been. So what's new in nutrition? Fuck all's new in nutrition. Carbs, proteins, and fats. It's all the same. All these diets work. They all work for the same reason. There's no magic. There's no, right? So nothing's changed. The 90% is just your opinion, the way you want to do it. Fitness. I hear this all the time. Oh, well, you got to do this workout because it's this. You got to do that work. No, you don't. There's 10% facts. We've still got the same primal movements we had hundreds of years ago. We're still doing the same shit. the 90% is just everyone's going to take you on a different journey. And I think
Yeah.
it's just that's life.
I love that. I couldn't agree with that more. And there's been so many times where, look, I'm talking about stress. Okay, this is nothing new. I'm talking about 5 techniques: breath work, mindfulness, meditation, affirmations, visualization. I did not invent those things. I just have a different voice of how I teach those things. I might have a different take on how I present those things. It might catch you on a Tuesday at 10:02 where you go, "Oh, I get it now." I don't know. Um, there's nothing new under the sun. We're not really coming up with these new innovative things. We might have a different spin on it. We might have a different packaging on it. It's the same thing. So when people have said, "Oh, well, what's new in stress reduction?" Not mushrooms. I don't know. Microdosing, hallucinogen. I don't know. But it's the same base. Let's get the basics first. Because if we needed something new, then that means that the old stuff is working and everybody would be without stress, or they'd be non-reactive to their stress. So let's get the basics down first. But no, I love that 10%. Yes, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I actually saw a post today from a friend of the show, Jordan Syatt, who was on the show recently. So shout out to Jordan. Well, back at the beginning of the year, and he made a post today, and it was something along the lines of like, you're working towards that fitness goal, and he's another fitness professional, and it was like, you don't need another supplement, you don't need more burpees, you don't need this, you don't need that. What you need to do is go get 7 to 9 hours sleep, hydrate yourself, reduce your stress, move every day.
Mm-hmm.
Stop looking for shit that's not there. Like, it's,
Yeah.
someone will sell it to you because you're looking for it, but it's the same thing. And I always say this, people always say it to me, well, why should I train with you? I'm like, doing the same thing everyone else is. If the way I do it resonates with you, then come work with me. If it doesn't, no one's going to teach you anything different. They're just going to teach you in a different way.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly what naturopathic medicine is. It's drink plenty of water, get plenty of sleep, poop, put good food in your body, put good thoughts in your mind, breathe. I mean, like, that's kind of it. And if we just did those things, we wouldn't need to do, we wouldn't need all these supplements and medications. That's a whole nother conversation about disease and illness and stuff like that. But it's like, we're not doing the basics. And then we look for something outside ourselves.
Yeah. And it's quick fixes, right?
Yeah.
Not doing the work. And it's hard to go to bed at the same time every day, to get up every day, to do your movement, to get your activity. Like, it's not, people always say that, oh, what's the magic? How do you do it? Why is it, and I'm like, it's nothing magic. I'm like, you just have to do it, but you have to do it. You can't do it for 2 weeks and say it's going to, you just do it, and you do it consistently, and you do it for 20 years, and then you get, whatever the end result is that you're looking for. But it's, then it becomes, and I love this as well. And to quote someone else, James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, is what he's most famously known for. And, he talks a lot about that, right? He's not trying to necessarily create a habit. What you're trying to do is you're trying to become a person who does. And I really like that, right? So, and I use that as a coaching tool, and I have with many of the guests that have been on coaches do the same thing. We talk about, what does, you want to be like, you want to be that person that exercises every day. You got to start to think, what do I need to do to be that person? Not where I've got to do 30 minutes of this type of workout and this type of food. No, you don't need to do that. You need to be a person that does those things and implement the things that help you get there.
Yeah, that's so great. And that's why I love using other people as examples. I mean, we can't compare ourselves to others, but look at people that have what you want, that do what you want. Who are they that they did that thing? Who are they? What habits do they have? What steps did they take? And mimic that in a way, to help you get there. But yeah, no, I completely agree. That's a great way of putting it. I love that.
And I like to say that to my clients too. They're like, well, what should I do? And I'm like, well, I'll give you an example. If you want to do this is how I achieve that. I get up every day at 5 a.m. and this is how I achieve it.
Mm-hmm.
Take that if you like, and you can use it. And it's not like, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm giving you an idea, and then you have to mold that, right? Because that's really success in coaching. Like, if it's reliant on me telling you what to do, it's never going to be a good relationship.
Well, it's not only, to your point, it's not only what do I have to do, it's who do I have to be.
Yeah.
It's the being and the doing. So yeah, that's a great combo.
Yeah. And that's and actually I learned something recently on a show. I had a ontological coach on the show.
Ooh.
And that was cool because we talked a lot about that, and she talks about how that whole coaching model is about the being and not the doing. And that was a really good lesson in pumping the brakes a little bit, and exactly that, right? The being, and embracing the being of who I am, but then understanding what other things I need to do as well, right? And it
Yeah.
gives me space to do that. And that was really impactful for me. So that was another great thing I learned. Always learning things. This is the selfish pursuit of having a podcast, apparently. So that's cool.
I hear that from every podcast I do. They just, same thing as a host myself. It's like I've learned so much and had my mind open to so many things that I never would have considered. So
Yeah,
no, I
it's
get it. Yeah.
been awesome. So I got one last thing that's going through in my brain that I'd love to ask you, and then I want to hear a little bit about where everyone can find you, and then
Mhm.
we'll wrap up the show from there. So the naturopathic medicine, the mindfulness, the meditation, the stress reduction, like all these things you're teaching and you're out there doing and excelling at, and just have to look at your bio and your resume. You've done some amazing things, and I want to give you credit for that. What I think I'd like to know, and I think I know our listeners well. I think what the listeners want to know is, what does Kathy struggle with?
Oh, that's a great question. I think balance is probably the big one. I do a lot of talking about ego states and these different aspects of ourselves that come forward in any given thing. And I have an ego state called Capricorn, who is a go-getter. It's the reason I have that big resume, right? But the problem with that is she takes over too much. And so one thing that came really beautifully out of that year of COVID, of having to sit in that stillness, was finding that balance of getting to enjoy sitting in the hammock with my boyfriend, getting to enjoy going on day trips, getting to enjoy just being still and actually saying, what do you want? Rather than having this have to do, go all the time. Now it's tough because it's a habit, right? And now that we're back full time and things are opening up and I'm fully vaccinated and my schedule's packed again, it's hard to not revert back to, yes, I'll do that. And yes, I'll do that. And of course I'll say that. Yes, I'll work weekends and I'm having to rein that in and find that balance. And the thing that Capricorn covers up for me is not only a fear of failure, but a fear of, if I don't do more and more and more, people aren't going to like me, which comes from having, unfortunately, conditional love as a kid. If I wasn't a straight A student, I didn't feel as much love. If I didn't do good in that dance recital, I didn't feel as much love. If I wasn't the perfect weight, my dance instructor got on my case. So kids, even if we don't have big T trauma, we all have little T trauma, whether it's a look from a parent or a passive aggressive comment from an instructor, or getting dropped off to kindergarten and us finding that to be abandoning. We all have something in our past that triggers these ego states to kick in and have to protect us. So I think the biggest thing that I struggle with is keeping that in balance and realizing I can play and I can take time for myself and I'm worth that, even if I'm not accomplishing anything.
I love that. Yeah, it's something I see a lot out there in many media channels right now, and it speaks to the boundaries, right, and how we do that, and that's something that, geez, we all need to work out. Your example resonates with me a lot, and it's definitely that we've all got many reasons why we don't feel feel that love, feel that acceptance. Like, people won't love us and accept us, and it resonates with so many people, but it stops us setting those boundaries, and something that we could all probably do a bit of a reset on. And yeah, I like that. I'll spring that one at the last moment.
I love it.
So tell us all just a little bit more, I guess, where we can find you, where we can connect with you. I'm going to put it all in the show notes too, so everyone will be able to get in there and simply click on it. And also kind of tell us what's next on the 2021 calendar for you.
Yeah, so my 8th book just came out, which I'm so excited about. So it's on communication, called Say What? How to Communicate Anything to Anyone. And there's also a big chunk in there about ego states, because I do a lot of work with that in my coaching and I do a lot of workshops on that. I'm getting a lot of calls for that because it's something that no one's really talking about. And it's a really great way to optimize your performance and bringing your best you forward, which I know is important to you on the show. So that I just did. So I'm not going to write any more books for a while. I say that, and then Capricorn goes, wait, you have another one. So yeah, So all my books are available on kathygruver.com. If you want to talk to me about one-on-one or couples or team coaching, that's kathygruver.coach. I'm all over social media at either Kathy Gruver or Dr. Kathy Gruver. And I have trapeze videos all over the place, which is really fun. And I don't know. You know what? I set goals every year. I set physical, emotional, spiritual, relationship goals. And, I'm just checking them off. And I'm finding that balance and enjoying life. And I'm doing a lot more speaking. We're getting back in person, which is great. So I don't know. I just follow the breadcrumbs. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how 2021 unfolds in front of me, and just going to get a go with that.
Well, that's amazing. I love that, because that just speaks to everything you've shared with us today, and about the control and everything. Just, what's going to happen and how we react to it is so important. So I love that, and I'll be checking out some of the things you're doing. And I think as well, just I'm in Ontario right now, as the listeners will know, and in Canada we've got some hiccups along the way, but it's great to hear that you're back out there presenting in person. That's something that I've deeply missed, being able to go to conventions and present and talk in front of people. So other than on a podcast. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun, and I think that gives a lot of hope to people around the world that maybe aren't in that position right now. So that's really, really good to hear. And I just want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your wisdom, and I know the listeners have got a lot from it. So thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone. So we're going to wrap the show up now. And as always, just remember, if you got something great from the show today, please go find Kathy, see all the amazing things she's up to. Please share the show on your social media, tag us, tag Kathy, tag everybody, and get the conversation out there, because so many people will benefit. And as we always say, we're changing the world one conversation at a time with your support. So we thank you for being part of the community. And on that note, remember, be the best possible version of yourself you can be. Keep making a difference in the world. We'll catch you on the next episode.